We need some lights underneath. What's going on, guys? I don't know if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up or comment there. See if the audio is decent. I can play with this thing a little bit here. It's too loud. Seems like I got to go a little bit louder. Testing 1, 2. There we go. Leon in the house. What's up, my man? Can you guys hear me good? Testing 1, 2. Ryan, what's going on? Wicked. So you guys hear me good? Fishing Connection says we're good, Seb. Everything's good. Everything's peachy. Pretty excited to go through this presentation here. I've been working on it for a bit, and I have some good news, some bad news. We're gonna have to break this down in 3 parts. I can't do it all in one night because I'm literally opening the book that's in here and giving it all to you guys. We're going to go in details. I'm just looking at my lighting here, wondering if I need more lighting or less lighting, and I'm wondering about my audio. But yeah, it's pretty in-depth. I'm trying to give a lot of information, just more than just talking about the moon phases, but go into detail about the moon phases, go into detail about fish migration, because there's migration depending on the fish species. So I'm going to break it down to species today. If you're here to learn about lake trout, you're going to learn a little bit, but it's primarily going to be whitefish. Tomorrow, I'm going to have another one, and these are going to stay on. Tomorrow, I'm going to have another one, probably at the same time, and we'll dial down the lake trout just right where we left off. I want to be a bit more in depth about the lake trout. I just need more time. I was invited to speak and be a guest speaker at the ice fishing show in Barrie. It was just a bit late notice for my schedule. I tried everything to make it happen. Maybe next year. But I figured, you know what? Why don't I post it online? And the guys who've supported me for so long, I can review this. I don't know how long this is going to be. I think it's going to be an hour and change. And it'll be on my YouTube channel. Let's see. Thanks for everybody that's supported me over the years, by the way. And thanks for everybody that gives me a thumbs up right now. And if you can do me a favor, share this on your social media so we can get the viewers ranked up. I'm going to read some questions on the chapters that we're going through. So keep your questions pertaining to Lake Simcoe depending on the chapters that we're in. I'm going to try not to focus so much on the chat. It's really in depth, and I want to be able to give you all the little key details. What's up? Wicked. I think we're going to have a good ice season. I'm wondering if I should pump up some more light. Should be good. Okay, we're going to start this. Share my screen. Window. No. Chrome tab. Won't let me, so I have to put it separately. Okay. I'm also learning here. There you go. So I'm going to share back and forth. You're going to see me speak here, but I'm going to share back and forth the presentation and the live feed here. Once you have questions, I'll be here, focusing down. I got some tackle here I can show you, and rod and reel when we get to the technique and the, combos that I recommend and all that stuff. Okay, let's start this. So I can do this once I go on here. I'm going to start it right into slideshow mode. Oh, but it won't let me because I'm in YouTube. This is why I need a streaming device, and that's going to be the next thing here. So let's do it. Window, boom. And uh, I wanted to dial down my techniques and my presentation based on baits that I make that know works. So presented by yours truly, basically. And by the way, the website went live today, critterassassins.com. There's not much for sale there right now. There's a few boxes, but we'll go into it later. So my story, it all started here. I don't know if some of you guys are watching right now. You could probably see yourself in the pictures here. This was a first on Lake Simcoe, an on ice seminar early in the morning. It was cold. The fishing was terrible. We had some giveaways. It was awesome. First person that caught a lake trout got a free pair of Vigor eyewear, which is pretty cool. My story, I got ADHD to the max. And luckily, I can't see the chat. I see the same thing that you guys are going right now. My ADHD, like squirrel all the time in my head. So we're going to try to keep it focused here. The way I see fishing, for me, it's a way of life, sort of like a samurai way of life. He's not training to be a samurai just to fight, but everything that he does in his life revolves around, his way of life. For me, is being efficient on the water, uh, and progressing into my angling skills and career, if you want. Also, I'm a selective, I call it selective, adventure exploring fishing hunting guide. I've been doing that for the past 3 years up here, and I've done it on and off on Lake Simcoe. And when I say selectively, I don't guide everybody. If you can't be my friends and I don't see myself being a friend of yours, at the end of the day, we're not going to do business. To me, it's not for the money. I want to share my passion, and I want to be able to share moments like this with a father and son, and making them learn. And I want to go out with people that want to learn to become better anglers. I'm a tackle junkie. It's really bad, really, really bad. Like I have so much stuff that when I die, they're going to sell it for cheap, and they won't even know that there's some good tackle in there. Yeah, I definitely need help in that department. I changed the tackle industry in Ontario. A young guy like me, I had some dreams, and I had the support of you guys. And I created a store during COVID that completely boomed. We had some employees, and we created our own market, and a lot of the industry follows suit. They stopped carrying what Canadian Tire was carrying and all the big buck stores were carrying, and they focused on bringing stuff unique to their store to bring their clientele in, which is pretty cool. And this is where we are, we're, I want to the tube and talk to you guys here a bit. 1 second. Yeah, this is where I'm struggling right here. There you go. We're going to stop the sharing of this thing. 1 second. So going back to, Critter Assassin, I was making baits literally for friends, for neighbors, for people around here, for some of you guys that have been supporting me since the spring. And it's pretty cool, man. It's a hobby of mine that I've always done with my own tackle, but I want to bring it to the tackle industry. We got a bunch of tackle here we're going to talk about. And I've been posting it lightly on my social media, increasing some of the posts about it. You guys can see on Instagram. And a friend of mine that I've done business with in both side of the fence for over a decade contacted me and said, "Hey, Sebastian, I'd love to, just so you know, this is where I'm at in my career. I'd love to carry your stuff." I'll look into it. It's one of the biggest in the future, it'll be the biggest. It's one of the biggest tackle store that we have in Canada. And the person that contacted me, his name's Tom Choppin. He comes from a background in the fishing industry. He's always worked in the fishing industry, as far as I know, over the last decade. He's helped brands like Life Target, Freedom Tackle, Now that was purchased by American Bait Works, and now he's signed on with Tackle Depot. And I know when Tom gets involved with a company, that company's only going up. It's not going to go steady. There's going to be an evolution, and I see where Tackle Depot's going. You guys have seen, and they've ramped up their social media. Where they're going, I really enjoy the mentality of the people that work there, and the fact that they came to a little mook like me and said, "Hey, we want to support you. We want your stuff in here. You're small. You're not a big corporation, but we also believe in you." And that means the world to me. That makes me want to bring my game into the tackle manufacturing industry to another level. And that's what I'm trying to bring here. I'm fairly new into the game, but I've progressed so much. And it's just a part-time thing for me right now. Like if you go on my website, there's probably 46 items right now that you can purchase. There's 2 boxes. There's a lake trout and a whitefish box, and a few t-shirts. I'm not going to sell item individually. Tackle Depot will sell items individually for me. We'll talk about the baits later. So right now we're just doing packs, but at the ice fishing show in Barrie, Tackle Depot will be there, and they'll have a whole, I think it's 3x6 wall of just critter, assassin, all this stuff. I've made everything. Now, being straightforward with you guys, the packaging is not the greatest. That's the packaging. I mean, it's not those big corporation. I don't have deep pockets to just go buy clamshells. And the thing is with clamshells, they take more space on the wall. I want to be efficient here. This is what Critter Assassin is about. It's about being efficient, giving you more for your money, and everything's compact. Anyway, we'll dive into this later. But this is why I'm doing a seminar, and I feel like I got to give back to you guys. You guys have supported me, and without you guys watching right now, I wouldn't be able to share this story with you guys right now. So it's amazing. We're going to dive back into mastering Lake Simcoe, and we finished my story here. So now I got to figure out how to do my screen sharing again. Window, boom, we're back here. I'm jumping back into my window. I'm sorry. So here we are. To me, fishing, I approach fishing, and I'm terrible at maths. As you can see, none of these numbers make sense here. But I approach fishing not per luck. I approach fishing a different way. It's the percentage game for me, and I'm terrible at maths. Leon can tell you about this. The percentage game. When you leave to go fishing, if you don't have a plan, what's your percentage level that you're leaving at, and how can you increase this percentage game so you can minimize the luck aspect into it? And then we're going to dive deep into this. Locations. Okay, you can't catch what's not there. If you're going to go and fish, and the fish are simply not traveling, feeding, or staging, or suspend in those areas, the chance of you catching the fish that you want to target in this situation is a whitefish are going to decrease greatly if you're not where fish travel. So if you're out there, we're going to dive into this a bit later into maps and everything, so hang in there. If you're fishing history, if you're fishing where they were in July and we're in January, fish are at different locations at different times of the year. They don't have a roof over their head. They swim where the food and the temperatures are great for them, and the oxygen. Percentage game again, the techniques that you have out there. You can go out there with a Meigs, and I can go out there with a Meigs. You're probably going to outfish me. I don't have the Meigs technique dialed down like James Meager has it. So the percentage of him catching more fish, if he has his technique dialed down, the rod, the equipment he's using is going to be a lot greater than mine. The feeding habits overcome a reaction strike. The way a fish feeds is very important into his habit is cognitive repetition every day. Like when I open the fridge, I don't think about opening the fridge. It's daily done the same way. Time of day. You can't catch what's dormant. A fish that's suspended, very hard fish to catch. but a fish that's feeding. So if you're going to choose your time that you're going to go out on the weekend, and we're going to dive this later into these slides, is moon phases, feeding windows, time of day, adding a percentage higher for you to catch more fish. You're targeting whitefish. They're timid, spooky fish. I've seen it with my own eyes. They are the fish that's more spooked than any other fish. They are not a predatory fish. They get eaten a lot by lake trout, pike, burbot, you name it. I see a lot of guys fishing shallow. You know, if you're blaring music, the fish don't party much. They might come and see. They're not going to stay there too long. If you get cranking your ice auger, gas ice auger, they're going to spook. They're not going to stay under there. So again, if you're making less noise, you're going to catch more fish than a guy that's making more noise. Graphs. Everybody's asking me what I should get for graphs. And to be honest with you, the techniques I'm going to tell you, you don't need a life scope, and you don't need a flasher, or you don't need a 2D sonar. It's best that you get a graph. And I used to think if you go to Lake Simcoe without a graph, you're not going to catch a fish. God, was I wrong. I've seen older guys catch outfish live scopers. Line diameter, the quality of your line, direct versus your swivel. All these details are going to change and increase your percentage or decrease your percentage of hookup ratio. Patterns, you know, if you're going to fish a bloodworm later in the season, when it's an early season pattern, the chance of you catching a fish on a bloodworm is decreased. So utilizing those patterns at the right moment. Fishing the moon phase, we're going to go right in depth into this. Like, I've studied this very meticulously over the years, and I've seen it with my own eyes. The intro, basically, guys, as I've said, intros, we're going to talk about the species, the behavior, the locations, and the pattern. Lake Whitefish, which is what is in Lake Simcoe, there's two, in my opinion. There's the deep ones and there's the shallow ones that have totally different behaviors, their migration, their locations, and their patterns. That's what we're going to review right after this. Lake trout, this is going to be part 2. This is going to be tomorrow. Burbot is going to be part 2 as well with the lake trout. Perch, pike, and walleye, there's an asterisk right here. I've only caught one walleye in my whole life on Lake Simcoe. It was a great big one. The chance of you catching a walleye and on Lake Simcoe are very slim, but they're doable. We're going to talk about all these, you know, deep and shallow in their migration. Just a little piece of information. I strongly believe that on Lake Simcoe, fish migrate a lot more than I'm trying to find a YouTube page again. Fish migrate a lot more than come on, give me this. Where is it? Oh, it's been hidden. Okay, there. Walleye migrate a lot more than any other fish on Lake Simcoe by far. Walleye in general are freshwater species that's underrated, their migration, especially on big bodies of water. You're talking about Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. You can find data on Lake Erie on how much those walleyes migrate. It's the same for the whitefish. Those fish migrate. If you think of herd of deer or herd of cows that live in giant acreage, they migrate where the grass is greener and taller. It's the same thing for those whitefish. They're underwater. Those whitefish are feeding on bottom. Some are feeding up, especially the deep one. We're going to go into this. But they're going to go where the feed is, where there's more oxygen, and where they feel more comfortable. Where they feel more comfortable is survival of the fittest, is where the food is. Migration goes into bait fish, and this is a giant tip that I've discovered over the recent years that nobody talks about. Scent. Does scent work on fishing attract? Yes, it does. How do you think a salmon locates a school of herring, cisco, alewife, shiners through the years? You think they just have lateral line and a vibration line to go and locate them and it works endlessly? No. They smell them. The current that's brought into their face has that scent. As the fish swims through the water, he has a biofilm over him that releases. If you go on Lake Simcoe and Barrie right now in the marina, Get out of your car. You're going to smell right away. It smells fishy more than usual, and go in the marina and look. That's all the bait fish that you're smelling. There's so much in there. The biofilm goes in the water, and the water is, warmer than the air right now, and some, depending on the temperature, and it rises and you smell it. Those predatory fish in the lake, when that school of bait fish is moving, they can smell them and they'll track them for days. Oh, okay, we're behind them. We're going to feed. It's something they don't talk about. A salmon and a trout species, they'll find their reds where they're born, because the ground where they are, water erodes it, brings that scent, and it calls them in exactly where they're born. So can fish smell? 100%. It's not because they don't have nostrils like us. They do. They just have this different receptors. We think that we can smell underwater. They do. They do. They might not hear the same way we do, but they have those lateral line that gives them vibration. Diving back into the slide here, if I can find it. There it is. I'm going to get to the questions soon, guys. Okay. This is confusing. I really got to get that stream thing going. Okay. So we've talked about all this. Next, crack the code. You got to look at the data. Where's the data? Maps. Maps will give you all the data you need. You don't need to look underwater with a drone like I have to see where the flow of things are on the lake, where the fish hang out. We're going to talk about the migrations here. The migration and the maps. Google satellite view is what I use the most, more than anything. I'm not sure if this is going to let you guys see what I want to see here. I might have to change it into my, oh yeah, okay, so it's not going to show it. It's not going to show it. Okay. Oh no, you're seeing it. You're seeing it. You're seeing it. Okay. Where are you now? Here we go. We got beautiful Lake Simcoe out here. Let's look at the data. Where's the data? Where are the bait fish right now? If you're planning on catching whitefish January 1st, you got to understand where those fish are right now and where they're starting to migrate to. And this is where you're going to set your percentage increase to meet those whitefish as they're progressing through those zones, migrating, staging. We have deep whitefish and we have shallow whitefish. They're both lake whitefish, but both these fish prefer different areas to live in. Let's focus with the deep whitefish that I know on Lake Simcoe. They live in Kempenfelt, and during the fall transition pattern, a lot of bait fish move into Kempenfelt and they come and spawn here. And the bait fish are in the marinas. The bass are behind them. The walleye, most of the majority of the big walleye transition into Kempenfelt and live in the outer edge here. Whitefish, bass, perch, lake trout migrate through here, following this giant bait fish migration through the lake. What will happen starting December and January, that bait fish migration slows down. They don't go into the marina to feed as much anymore. Those lake trout and those whitefish will spawn in the marina walls here. And I've seen it with my own eyes. Those big giant rocks. There's another one up here. And there's some up here. They'll come and lay their eggs. They need giant boulders so the eggs can fall through the crack. Hopefully a goby doesn't get it. In most cases, it grabs it. Those fish, as they're hanging through Kempenfelt, starting early January, are going to migrate slowly out of Kempenfelt. And by slowly, I mean weeks. This is why you're looking at Johnson's Beach. You can look at, where is it? We call it Black Forest. You can come down here. There's a little path right through here. You can come right through here legally. You can see it. There's Black Forest. to come catch those whitefish. And those whitefish will pretty much be in that 35 to 90 to 100-foot range through the day. You'll have to find that out. We'll go into the details where you should spend some time looking. But this whole shoreline, I would say from Johnson's Beach to Oro 1, which is right here, is really good the first few weeks of January. And you'll see those fish migrating through out of Kempenfelt. And it is the same for those lake trouts. Those lake trouts are in there right now as we speak. If you want to go see, don't go fish. It's illegal. You better leave them alone. You park your car right here and right in a lot of lake trout this time of the year, especially the moon being full cycle right now, early morning, evenings, and low light conditions. Go and see. They'll literally, you need a pair of Polar sunglasses and you'll see them. There's 20-pounders in here laying eggs. Back to the presentation. So, I'm sorry. So these are your deep whitefish. Now, looking at the map again, as those fish transition, that doesn't mean that there's not any giant school living around Bear Point, Oro 5, Oro 4, all the way to 8 Mile Point through the year. But those fish, I feel, still do migrate out of Kempenfelt. And a lot of them, once they get to Big Bay Point, and that can happen early season, but I find Big Bay Point, this area right here, to be really, really good in that late January to late February. It's a choke point. A lot of these deep fish, as they come through, they come up shallow. They feed on what's shallow here. And they migrate to the shoals that we have further out. And we'll talk about them through Navionics. And I'll try to come back to this area and show you guys. Those are some deep whitefish that will come on top here. And why here? Because there's currents. And you might not see the currents, but learning about moon phases, what we're going to learn today, there's a lot of current in this part of the lake compared to other areas. And I'll tell you why into details. We have long shoal down here. There's a few shoals down here, and there's some deep ones down here that deep whitefish will congregate to. And when I say deep whitefish, we'll talk about the pattern on how to target them. A deep whitefish is not necessarily going to feed on goby, but mostly feed up on shiners, emerald shiners, bait fish, that type of stuff. Compared to a whitefish that lives shallow, will feed on the bottom, feeding down. Other areas for whitefish that is very good for the deep ones, I find, is the coast of Georgina here. Again, anywhere from 35 to 85 feet of water. You have a choke point here, and you'll get currents. And we'll talk about this. This is why we're looking at the Google map. We have some rivers down here and some rivers at Gamebridge here, the Talbot River. And the lake is feeding north into Couchiching. And we'll talk about this. But one of the major rivers of Talbot, there's not a lot of current unless it snows or we get a lot of rain and it melts. But this current will travel north along all these ridges that you can see here. You see these ridges? All these ridges continue on the water for kilometers long. And they develop into bigger ones, smaller ones. So these are your shallower whitefish, I find. On the east side and the south side of Lake Simcoe are your shallow shoals, 20 feet, 15 feet, 35 feet. They top at. Those shoals will hold lake trout and whitefish early season because this is where they spawn. I'm going to go back here and click on this bad boy right here. Boom. Navionics or Garmin now. And I love you, Garmin, but it was much easier to access this page. It's hard to find now, this page. If you told me where to find it, I had to Google multiple times, and it's not as friendly to use the website. And I get why they're doing that as a business point, but when it was Navionics, it was a lot easier to be user-friendly. So you can see those reefs here. If you know how to read a map, those reefs are, and those whitefish will spawn very close to shore in shallow water, less than 10 feet of water. These are prime spawning grounds for whitefish. All these ridges. See if we zoom in on here. We don't have it in meters. Yeah, please make Garmin, make Navionics great again. Anyway, so this is in feet. I like my shading to be, we're going to say, shade me at 20 feet. This is what I'll look at. When you're looking at your graph, that's what I do in the winter. Usually on your graph, you're about to 2 levels of shading, like that shallow shading and that mid-depth shading or whatever graph you have. You can play with that. I tend to leave it at 20 feet, and then I can start looking at the maps more efficiently as to where I'm looking. The ridge are popping out. Look at this one, right? So those fish, when they're spawning in those shallow water, these types of shoal here, the ice forms, the oxygen will deplete, and they'll leave those spawning grounds and migration. The migration for the shallow fish is towards deeper water, but they'll still hang around those shoals. So early ice, like January 1st, usually you don't get a lot of ice. If you're able to get some ice around here, you go out and you don't need to go far. You just need to fish these ridge lines. But as the season progresses, I'm going to go further and further to the point of these shoals. You know, that late February, you're not going to catch many fish on the inside here. Most of these fish will have migrated to greener pastures. They might have done all the feed here. It's getting too cold. It's getting too shallow with the ice growing over them. We'll go into some great details about areas and where to set yourself up, because you're looking at this shoal right here. I don't know if it's got a name. It looks like a great shoal, and there's for sure whitefish at some point. There's some other shoals here too. Where you set up on this shoal is critical, and understanding underwater currents of Lake Simcoe, the flow of the current, will help increase your percentage of catch ratio. If you're going to get set up, you know, on the shoal on top versus the front end of the shoal that sees the current versus the back, you're at different time, at different moon phases will be different activity for the fish. So we're going to review this back here. So Navionics is what I use on Lake Simcoe. I'm running Garmin's. I had Humminbirds. I've had Odo charts. I can tell you, it doesn't matter the level of angling that you have. This lake, although this seems to be mapped out to a T, it is not. There is some shoals all around here that you do not see that have fish on them. And they're not big, but I find that they're a different concentration of bottom rocks. There's one right up here, and you're going to see a lot of guys looking for it. You're not going to find it in the winter, but there's one right up here that is unreal, has so much flow, and the bottom is sort of like a river rock, and it's a wall that's 10 feet tall, always has bait fish. It's really good. Finding it, good luck. You rarely see people fishing through here, but with that being said, after this, you're going to see a lot of people. Back to the presentation. So Navionics is what I use. Moon phases, what I used to, and we're going to talk about moon phases later. The website I use is Fishing Reminder. Fishing Reminder, you got to put in your location. You can register and see further through everything in terms of flow in the water. The full moon, the last quarter new moon, the new moon, and the full moon creates tidal tides and neap tide. We'll go into this later. And yes, freshwater lakes don't have tides, but that you can see what they do. The ocean's just a lot deeper. A lake like Simcoe will have some. The weather network, you know, obviously our weather system that's coming through is usually pushing high pressure or low pressure through, and it'll create current as well. And those fish, the dinner bell is the current for them. They like flow. Let's get some questions here while I'm here. 1 second. Okay, we're back here. Do we have some questions? Can you guys hear me pretty good? Well, hopefully you guys can still hear me. So fish migrations, you have questions about fish migration, put it on here. This is the end of the chapter in terms of migration. Look at your data, look at your map. I can't go over through all the zones, guys. If I go through all the zones, we'll be here till midnight tomorrow night. You got to want to put in time and study what you're looking at and learning how to read a fishing chart or navigational chart. I'm going to go back into Navionics. Navionics is great. It's a great tool, or Garmin, whatever app they want to call it now, is a great tool, but it is not 100% accurate. The data is queued in by guys that usually don't know how to run their fish finder, and I'm going to show you why right now. You guys have questions, look into it right now. So let's look at this here. You see this pink line here? This is a navigational light, and you'll see a lot of boats traffic. It's a navigational route for big boats to come through on the lake safely. If you look and you zoom in here, so on our chart, notice how the lines are going all this way, and they all have a route following the route. See how those lines are going this way, and all of a sudden they're going this way? This is because boats are going like this, not like this. They're following this line. So much more details you have here because boats have passed over it versus this here. Now, if those boats, their fish finders are not set up properly, they skew in that data. You can see where the boat traffic is in the lake, right? This is the boat traffic right here. You don't get a lot of boats here, but this is the data that they've brought in. Look at all the data funneled through here. Not many people go here. This right here, my whole stomping ground in here. The dump is literally right here. And I assume it's destroyed this whole bay. It used to be, when I talked to old timers, that this bay used to have the biggest smallmouth in the whole lake. Now you're lucky to catch one over 3 pounds or even see one. But look at all the flow. This is boat traffic. And it goes back around Fox and Snake Island too. You're looking at it. Oh yeah, thanks, Garmin. Same thing down here. You're going to see a lot of boat traffic in the way the data is queued in. Okay, those shoals are great too, shallow and deep water. Let's go back to the tube. Okay, so we got some questions. Any insight into why Simcoe gets murky into the winter in February? Yes, that really depends on water clarity. A lot of the algae dies come February. There's no oxygen shallow. So when the algae dies, it starts to float and go through the flow. And it's also water clarity. Not water clarity. The sunlight penetrating through the ice is what keeps that algae alive. They need that sunlight, that sun rays, to stay alive and produce oxygen. So that's why the shallow sort of dies down a little bit. You also have snow that end up melting through the rivers, and it's the Talbot that'll give you the dirtier water. Now, dirty water on Lake Simcoe just makes the fish a bit more aggressive and less picky about bait because they can't see as far as they used to. Their sensor of vision is dimmed down a little bit. And usually, if you've put a drone down there, the last few inches of the bottom is fairly clear. It's all filtered through the algae that's alive down there and the zebra mussels and the guaca mussels. When fish are migrating, the migration is, like I said, weeks. It takes weeks, transitions, for them to go through zones and zones. So usually the deeper you are, those fish tend to stay. within 20 feet there. But if you're talking about the east side or the south side or the northwest side of Lake Simcoe, those fish have access to deeper and shallower water. Those fish will move up and down much quicker. Those ones that are in Kempenfeld, 70 to 90 feet is your staple grounds for whitefish. Doesn't mean you're not going to catch them 120 feet of water, but for them to transition from 120 to 20 feet of water is doable. But you know, they need to get stable up there. They can't do it right away. It's much less pressure being up there. They need to stabilize. They're going to stay into what they're feeding. You know, if you're feeding in the wild right now, and I say that a lot in my seminars. If you're feeding in the wild right now, what are you feeding on? Right? You're feeding on acorns. You're feeding on squirrels, deer. That's what it is right now. What is it going to be in the spring? Well, in the spring, it's going to be mushrooms, some foliage that you can eat, that sort of stuff, you know. It really depends what the forage is on. If they're deep and feeding on shiners, they're going to stick to that depth where they can smell those fish and be around those fish. North Shore Oro, there's a base that lives there year round for sure. But the fish that have migrated through there, yes, they'll move back towards 8 Mile Shoal. 8 Mile Shoal has a steady amount of fish that goes on it. It gets hit really hard. But it's a shoal that's you'll get those deep fish that come through and they'll show up shallow. I just find that those fish come through really quickly and leave that area very quickly. Those deep fish, when they come shallow, they don't like noise over their head. So if there's a skidoo running over it, they're not going to be as receptive as the ones that are shallow. Back to your regular programming. Okay. Now that we have the data, where do we apply it? Do fish migrate? We've been through this. Where and why? You know, Kempenfeld migration and those fish that are spawning up here in the north end. If you look, there's a shoal right here called Whitefish Shoal. It's called Whitefish Shoal for a reason. It's probably one of the most primary spawning grounds of whitefish. So is these shoals here too with lake trout. Looks like I got a waypoint right here. These fish will come up around these shoals. They're accessible right here, 4 Mile Point. All accessibility through Oro is decent, but you need permits now since COVID, and some of the resident thinks they own the water. Just when you go there, keep in mind, you're going up there early. If you're going to start a skidoo, go where there's no house like this. Go further, man. Go a bit further. There's easier access right up here, Kitchener Park. You can park right in here, drop your snowmobile, and get out. Don't go left. There's a creek here and sewage water that tends to stay warmer, that creek, for some reason, probably because of the gas in it. Park right here with your snowmobile. Usually Aurelia is pretty friendly. That's what I would do. Avoid going around these islands right here at all cost. Back to, oh, what the hell? There we go. When and why, you know, over a period of time, as the food and the oxygen depletes, it's just like cattle. They go grazing where the grass is greener. You know, once that oxygen and that food source that they're eating has been depleted, those fish are eating pretty much through the day when they can. If the food is fish behavior based on their location, and this is key. I used to have a slide about this. This is one of the most important slides that you're going to see through the whole system. You have your shoal, and let's say we're top of the shoal is 20 feet of water, 15 feet of water, and the bottom hand here, we're looking at 50 and 50 on either side. The current, say, is coming this way, and we've talked about where currents are going to come through, and through the moon phase, we're going to show that a bit more. Currents, if you know and you predict where the current usually on Simcoe heads north or south if you're looking at Big Bay Point. But in the current slowly flows north, the underwater current. Knowing that, there's also current. Once the current hits the shoal, there's less water here from top to bottom. It'll go much faster up here than it is here. And will flow through here. This part of the shoal, say this is the north end of the shoal and this is the south end of the shoal at the bottom here, there's less current. Active fish, really, really active fish will be in the front end of the shoal, nose towards where the flow is coming, because it tells them what's there. They know what's coming. They know what's that way. They want to swim that way, where they are able to smell what's on the ground and what's ahead of them without seeing it. So your concentration of fish that's up here, these are active fish. Those fish, you drop a bait in front of them, you're going to get them. Top of the shoal. That fish is on top of the shoal in shallow water where the current is the fastest. That's the most aggressive fish, even over those two. He's up here. He's feeding. It's not secure for him. Sorry, I clicked here. It's not secure for him to be up here. He's taking a risk. He's feeding up there. The ones at the back of the shoal, at the back of the current, those are staging, relaxing, suspending, dormant. Does not mean that they're not feeding, but they're less active. Being less active means they're probably digesting, right? Maybe those fish have fed here and they push back this way and they come and chill here till the next moon phase come through. Here's a picture of the ground. In a lot of grounds that you're fishing, and this is that algae, that moss at the bottom, and it's going to go key when we're going to talk about techniques. And guys, I find use too heavy of a bait that you're using. Anything heavier than half ounce is going to sink through that, and what's going to happen is the fish don't like sucking that algae at all. But if you leave your bait on top of it, it'll stay exposed and they'll see it faster and they'll go to it. A lot of people wonder if I had an underwater camera to film all the footage that I've had in the past. No, it's just a GoPro on a stand that I built. Tricky. It's super tricky to operate. Guys do it with a camera. I did the old school way like this. I find it's less spooky for those lake trout. Just to have that instead of a giant cord. And this is attached to a 30-pound braid. I've had it snap before on a fish fighting. But look at the bottom when you've drilled your hole. If you're going back to a shoal like this and you're going to fish in here, are you going to catch fish? Yeah, but your fish finder is going to pick up the big rocks. You're not going to see your bait on the sonar, and the fish are not going to see it as much either, right? Clear areas, those little gravel, sandy patch are preferable, I find, over your big boulders. I'm not saying they're not going to be through the big boulders, just harder for them to get to the bait because of the coverage, because of the bottom composition, obviously the big boulders. Let's go see if we got some questions. Gobies don't live that deep if there's no hard structure for them to be on. If it's just straight silt, it's mostly going to be skullfins, and fish are still feeding on whitefish and lake trout and burbot are still going to feed on deep water skullfins. But the gobies, they like structure. They like zebra mussels. They like for a spot for them to hide those little rocks, that gravel. And the deeper, it's usually silt on top of whatever clay or rock bottom. You don't see it. That's why that bottom bite in the deep, like that 50 plus feet deep, usually on Simcoe, it doesn't mean it's hard bottom. It's usually a softer silt bottom. It's still very good. Fish love that silt and swimming over it. Those fish are feeding up, right? Deep water fish. I'm just going to pick up a bait here. Your deep water fish are feeding like this, and your your shallow water fish will feed on bottom, feeding down. I'm not saying that the one that's shallow is not going to feed up, but that's just his habit, right? The way you open your pantry is a different way the way you open your fridge, and you don't need to think about neither to create the action. You just open the fridge. It's the same thing for them. So if you're going up on a shallow fish, if he's very aggressive, territorial, he's going to hit it. But the percentage of the chance are more on in favor for the fish feeding on bottom, right? The shallow fish feed on bottom on aquatic insects. We're going to review that later. Gobies, sculfins, bloodworms, a whole platter of food. The deep ones tend to feed up on that bait fish or, laterally forward on those shiners. If you got any questions, add them through here, guys. I appreciate everybody that shared the stream and liked. I greatly appreciate this, guys. So back to, we're already 51 minutes deep through here. And I feel like I'm going over stuff way too quickly. Oh, I gotta share that screen with you guys. Okay, back to, here we go. So more data. The more data that you collect looking at the maps and understanding where those fish are living, i.e. the gobies usually stand in that shallower water. As the ice progressed, they'll move in that 20 to 45 to 50 foot range. But after that, it's usually bait fish. What am I doing here? More data means more food. That makes no sense. What the hell? And that makes no sense either. What's on the menu? Early ice. So early ice for the shallow fish, bloodworms. Bloodworms is a pattern that we often see even on bass. They live in the silt, a little bit more muddier bottom than the harder bottom, and they're prevalent in the fall and die through the season as the ice gets stronger. That's why sometimes when the bloodworms will give you, if you eat a whitefish and you eat the liver of a whitefish and you'll see if you're allergic to bloodworms, you'll see what I mean. You'll either go to the bathroom or pass it through properly. But me, if I eat a whitefish liver, I'm going right through it, and it's mostly because of bloodworm that they've been eating. Larvas, obviously, earlier season, light penetrations through. The water's cold, but if light penetration gets through, larva, bugs are hatching, bugs are doing well, and the shallows will be great. But as the season progresses, the shallows will deplete because the oxygen and the light penetration is not going to be as good. So we're going to focus a lot more on gobies. You can still catch them on gobies. A lot of whitefish, that's once they get to a certain size, above 2 pounds on Lake Simcoe, pretty much feeding on the shallow ones on gobies. Emerald shiners. Here you have Critter Assassin. That's the 2.5 inch mating goby color with a jig head that I've designed with the right, and we'll visit this later on the techniques, but the right bend in the hook, the right gap in between, because they have such a small mouth. And here's a shiner looking. What am I doing? Sorry. So the shallow water color that I'd be using here is a goby color like this on the tracer, 2.5 inch or 3 inch. And in the deeper water, I'd be using more of a shiner color here. I'm not saying they won't eat this color down there, but remember, when we're talking about bottom here, if you're going and putting that bait on a 1/2 ounce, it's disappearing through here. They're going to see it, but they're not going to eat it. They don't want to eat that muck that's on top of here. Even if it looks like sand or gravelly, your bait's still going to sink down. So try to go to a lighter jig head, and we'll visit this later on when we're going to talk about my setups. So those are 2 baits that you can use. You can also use Meigs shallow. Meigs, it's a staple bait. It is the whitefish bait that's been around for a very long time. A lot of people early season will have a drop shot setup on a bait like this, and about 12 inches, they'll have a little hook with a bloodworm. When they're not feeding on bottom and you're still marking them and they're coming to your bait but you're not catching them, bloodworm, they're still feeding. They'll prefer bloodworm over those gobies, I find. I don't know if because the bloodworms are smelling some special or they feed a lot on bloodworms. Okay. Feeding habit of a deep water whitefish versus the shallow ones that we've been talking about. You can see here. Oh no, what do you? So I guess I can't stop this. Okay, yeah, I can. You see the whitefish? That's a whitefish that's feeding up. I'm so sorry. This system is clunky. I gotta move this here a little bit. There we go. Boom. I have scent in these baits, and it's really good scent. He's got a little whiff of it, leaves, and comes right back. He has to heat it. Scent is key when you're fishing, and not every scent is created equal. Here's the behavior of a whitefish feeding up. Going on bottom, this one ate it down. Like, these baits really work. The scent that I put in there and the color and the hook, those baits going right in their mouth. You can tell those fish don't really feed down most of their life. These are deep water fish that are shallow right now. They're feeding up. They're fairly aggressive. And the mouth, we'll be talking about the mouth. Let's review this view. You guys are probably happy to see this. Look at the mouth on these whitefish. They don't have a lot of suction power. So using a heavier bait that's more dense is not going to go in their mouth as deep. So your hookup ratio is not going to be as great. You need to go light. It gives more action to your bait. Every fish that came and sniffed this bait ends up eating it right away, right after. Pretty cool, eh? That's the Shinobi color. That's on the website. It's one of my favorite color I've ever made. It's so cool. Boom. Okay, we've seen this. Fish's mouth. Look at the whitefish mouth. Before we talk about technique, I see a lot of guys saying whitefish have a soft mouth. It's so wrong to say that because the majority of their mouth up here is very hard to penetrate. This is very stiff material where sometimes you have issues, your barb getting through it. We'll talk about it with your rod setup. Where they have a soft mouth is right here when it opens up. Remember, if you're fishing with a heavier weight and he tries to suck the bait in, it's not going to go in as far and it's more likely going to hook up here, especially if you're using a treble hook. If you're using a Meigs or you're using a Critter Assassin tracer with a jig head, most of the time the hookup will be on the roof of the mouth going up. So they don't have that soft of a mouth. You want a good rod to stick them here. The percentage of mass up here on the top end is way bigger than that little pin here. So again, it's a game of percentage. I'm going to put my percentage. A single hook is all I need to go up. I find it's a misconception. They have a really tough mouth up there. Really tough mouth. Fishing with a single hook, that's what you need to go worry about, is getting through this tough, leathery, I find. It's more leathery than cartilage compared to other fish. Hook and weight design is critical. If your hook gap from here to here is too big and the fish tries to swallow it, it'll stop at the fish's mouth. And you'll be like, oh, he just had it in his mouth, but I didn't connect with him. Well, he wasn't able to put it all the way through because the hook stopped right here. So having a lower gap here is critical, and a strong hook. These hooks you can grab with your thumb and your index finger when they're at the hole and pull them out. The hook is not going to bend out. It's not a light wired hook. It's a really good hook with a small wide gap. We make them in 1/8 and 1/4 ounce. And you're probably not going to realize this, unless I told you right now, but there's a small part down here that's blue and it glows in the dark. When you have those fish that are seeing further and the blue is the last light to disappear and the low light conditions and you're jigging high, and we'll talk about the techniques in a bit, you'll see why this glow in the dark comes to be a key feature. Okay, this is where I go back and talk to you guys. What's the first week I can hit lower Simcoe this season? I don't know, man. You need ice first, you know. You need ice first and be safe out there, you know. But early season, not you don't need to walk as far. Campenfeld also is very deep, but you can die in 10 feet of water. What's the difference between 100 feet of water? The shore tends to be a lot closer in Campenfeld. You don't need to walk as far, and it's locked into the lake. Any other part of the lake that's not fully frozen, the ice can move out. In Campenfeld, it's sort of locked in there. H4L, Seb, will you be back? Yes, I will be. Probably the first week of January. I'll be out there, and I want to do it differently. I'm not bringing my sled up there. I'm doing it by foot, and I'm going to hit all those shallow areas. And I had fun doing that the last few seasons, where you just got a little toboggan, a rod, just a spud bar, create a hole, and, you know, being quiet is key in those areas, and you can fish that 10, 15, 20 feet of water and get on some fish and get your limit usually. I'm not saying that you're going to catch 20, 30 fish, but they're moving in those areas, and they're trying to eat as much as they can shallow before they start progressing a bit deeper, the shallow fish. Is this, I missed the first, yes, it'll be, it should be available forever. JM Fishing said, if you were only able to fish one area on Simcoe, where would you spend your time? North Shore, Maine, East Shore, Maine, South Shore, Maine, or Kemp? If you were only able to fish one area of Simcoe, I prefer shallow water fish. They tend to be a bit more aggressive. You can see them by creating a hole in between your legs up to 30 feet of water. You can see your bait. You don't really need a fish finder. I do like the deep chase of the lake trout and the whitefish, but I find that shallow water is fun. You get to see down the aquarium. I have a preferred area. One area year round, I'm fishing the north end. If I get to fish year round, I'm fishing the north end. That's what I'm fishing. I feel that you can have that deep water fish come through too as well. There's some deep flats at 60 feet and they can come up, but I find that the north end is a bit better. Now, I'm not saying the south end is not any better. I just find that the north end will have a little bit less pressure because it's further from the city of Toronto. So if you go in the south end, you might see more huts and hut operators. So that plays into. Now, I'm giving locations here, guys. You need, like, a lot of people log into here to get into information and not support back, and that's okay. There's one thing I'm going to ask, and a lot of it is self-protected. You see somebody littering, not picking up their shit, tell them. Take a picture of their plate. The MNR will enforce that shit. It's important that we respect where those local entry point that we're getting into, get to learn the community. Hey man, you're going there early. When you come out, little box of cookie, I don't know, a fishing package to the person that, you know, you parked in front of their house. You just say, hey, I parked in front of your house. I just want to let you know I'm not from here, but thank you for allowing us to. It comes to that, you know, sometimes you got to grease a little bit. Support the communities you're going to visit. If you're going to be trashy, if you're going to if you're going to go out there and start your sled way early in the morning where you could have went a little 15-minute, don't be lazy. Usually it's the lazy people that makes it harder for us. No lettering. Don't over harvest. I see a lot of guys and that's prominent in the Innisfil side, I find. But the guys will catch a limit. They'll go back to their truck, drop their fish, and come back. And there's no need for that, man. We're all paying. It's a put and take fishery. The other thing I will tell you, I live on an area where commercial fishing for whitefish is still very viable. Those whitefish are very different than the fish on Lake Simcoe. The fish on Lake Simcoe are disgusting. I don't want to say this out loud, but it's some of them have growth. You're around farm fields. Your consumption of lake whitefish that are feeding on bottom close to zebra mussels, if you're keeping a limit every time you go every weekend, you might have some, the fish have an issue because of you see the lumps they have on them, the how fast they're growing. They put two and two together. The data set is telling you this. You're putting this through your body. Is it any better than the fish that you get at the grocery store? I don't know. I don't know where the fish at the grocery store came from. But on Lake Simcoe, they're growing fast. And a lot of them have lumps. There's disease down there. You don't want to keep eating those fish. Respect, put and take. The big fish should be released. They have the right genetic. They made it this far. That's what I try to preach. It's not everybody that's going to agree to that, and that's okay. So no hunting videos. Actually, no, not this year. It's hard. You can't put hunting videos on YouTube. You can't put firearms on YouTube. YouTube's not gonna let you monetize, and you're not gonna be viewed by people. You want to reach a greater audience over time. It's sort of being shadow banned if you start doing this. Will I post them somewhere else? I'm not sure. I do have a lot of footage. I have a lot of fishing footage I haven't shared yet. But since Anthony is the first member, I might have to start putting some footage that I have just for you. Yeah, put them on Rumble, maybe. Something I need to look into. Okay, so we've covered. Let's talk about technique. So everybody's asking me rods. I created my own ice rods, and to this day, I still use them. What's the best setup to use for whitefish out there? First of all, go as long as you can with your rod that your hut is allowing you to fish with. Most huts nowadays allow you up to fish up to a 40-inch rod. If you can get away with a 42-inch rod, I think it's perfect. This is custom. It's not even written on it. You want a backbone. That hook, that mings, or that lipless that you're using, or that spoon, or the tracer shad that you're using, you need to drive those hooks through that meaty part of the beak of the whitefish. You need a backbone, but you need a soft, moderate action tip that can take the fish and keep them pinned. If you're too stiff and you're moving your bait's moving like your tip. But once you add weight on here and you have a light action tip, that bait's going to move way more smoother through the water column, and it's going to look more real. Now, fishing those shallow fish, I'm going to rig one up here. Fishing those shallow fish on bottom, the key to success here, once you're fishing the right areas, is having your bait sitting on bottom like this, not an inch off bottom, because no bait does that. Remember, that fish has a behavior of always feeding the same way. If you're going to put it differently, or you're going to use like a bright white bait, no gobies bright white. You want to mimic the shading that they have on the profile, and you want to leave it on bottom and disturb the bottom a little bit. Your bait's going to stand up like this, and it's going to act like it's trying to get away. You, prior to fishing the bottom, if there's no fish around that you can see, you want to be a foot or higher, 18-inch, 24-inch, and just jig. until you mark one. Once you mark one, you want to hit the bottom. That fish, it'll create a territorial behavior for that fish. Something's running away from me. Something was shining, jumping up in there. I'm curious. I went and checked it and then went right away. So it's sort of like a dog and a squirrel. If the squirrel's going after the dog's gonna be like, yo, what the hell is weird behavior? But if it's staring, they're having a stare down, the squirrel starts to run away, that dog's gonna chase it. It's the instinct of the fish too, right? Squirrel's going up and down, fish sees it, goes down. It's like, oh, you're running away from me. Maybe I'll get there before it's got time to hide. And your bait's like this on bottom, and you're acting like you're trying to hide, but you can't. That fish is just like, got him. He's going to position himself. And whitefish are not very nimble, man. They're the worst. That and perch, they'll misstrike stuff. They'll just, I don't know if they're lethargic. Take your time. Be patient. Sometimes on your fish finder, the lines will separate and they'll come back and you think there'll be no fish, but keep your eyes peeled or look down the hole if you're shallow. That's the benefit of being shallow, is you can see in between down your hole what's going on, and you get to learn so much. Having your bait on bottom, not buried in the muck, use a lighter head. The heaviest I would go shallow is 1/4 ounce. That's me. That's just me. I like anything heavier I find gets buried, even in the sand. The sand has less, it's a lot more dense, so it's not compact down there. It'll disappear on the sand over time if you're using too heavy of a jig. So a smaller profile bait, Critter Assassin Tracer Shad, 2.5 and 3-inch with the scent that's in here. And you guys know I make some good scent. This is 2.0. This is legit. It's in the bait and on top of the bait. There's a lot of data and science behind this that I'm going to keep to myself for now because I got an edge, but it works. It's proven. You guys have seen the video. Every fish that came and nibbled came back so much more aggressively to eat it for a reason. It's the scent. The scent that's on here is you can't smell it unless you break it down. The other thing too is I want to take 2 minutes to explain something to you guys. The fishing industry has been lying to us. I'm a tackle junkie. What bugs me is when I buy a pack of bait and there's salt everywhere. The salt, and I'm going to hurt a lot of feelings right now through the industry. The salt is so they have more profit margins over you. So so a lot of baits have up to 40% plus salt in them. So that bait to produce, instead of $1 or whatever, it'll cost them 60 cents. They'll sell it for the same price and it'll break down quicker because all the grain of salt that's over there over time when the fish is biting or you're moving your bait up and down water column, once water touches it, if it's made at 40%, very quickly it'll dissolve and your bait will break down. It'll end up at the bottom of the lake. The fish will eat it or whatever, being discarded. The other thing too is it doesn't last as long because 40% of it is salt. When you go to the store at Tackle Depot and you buy one, take it out of the pack and look at it. Look, you can't really tell on here, but the quality of this material, a few of you guys have ordered it. I don't know if Leon is still watching, but it doesn't do justice. There's no salt in here. The other benefit of this is salt, when you put your hook through it like this, I'm just going to say my hook's on and I decide to remove it to change it, and I'm going to use it later on. First of all, I broke everything inside. All the salt is removed. Water's going to touch it. My bait is not going to be as reusable as I think it is. There's no salt in here. When I remove it like this, on this nice hook like this that I designed for lake trout, see this piece of plastic left here? Most of the salt will be in the barb. You put it back into your box. Now, every single hook that you have in that hundreds of dollars in your tackle box will be rusted because that little grain of salt got stuck at the back of the barb and you didn't see it. And then you put it back in your tackle box and everything, your hard-earned money is rusted. Frustrating. So the bait can break down quicker. It's not about buoyancy. If the companies if companies and manufacturing companies, those big corporations wanted to make it more buoyant, they would buy the right plastisol, which is a bit more expensive. They don't want to do that. They want to have their profit margin. For me, That's why I just had enough. Like, I want to create something that has no salt. Unless it's a Senko, it shouldn't have salt in it. Why should a tube have salt in it? I want to hear it from the bait manufacturer. Why, when you buy a tube at the store, it has salt in the plastic? So it's break down quicker. We make tubes for lake trout. Do they break over time? Yes. But way less quicker than the tube that has salt in it. And salt is not just your regular grain of salt. What the companies have discovered is to put up to 40% in it, they grind the salt down so it's very fine. So if you grab the bait and you just bend it over like this and you put your finger over here and you feel anything hard or like grainy, you have salt in there. And the smaller the salt is, the more they can put in it. That's, you might get less in a pack here with Critter Assassin, but these 4 baits will last you longer than 10 baits of the same size and the same material. If I was to put salt in it, I could make more money. For me, it's not about making more money. It's about a percentage game, being in the water longer. I don't have to change my bait all day. It looks sharper longer. I have a 3-inch tracer shad that's like this size. I had it all yellow. I caught 77 walleye on it. It's still hung in the wall. There's walleye marks all over it. I can still use it. Now, is it in the same original shape as it is? No. But if I had salt, 4 or 5 fish, it's over. I got to, it's salt is just so you end up buying more of their baits. That's all it is. Okay, so we were shallow whitefish. Now you've seen in the videos, those fish are in the current. They're feeding up. A fish behavior of feeding up is much different than a fish feeding down. He has to chase. When a whitefish is chasing, and the problem that you'll get, say you go into Kempenfelt, Johnson's Beach, and you're fishing, and that fish is coming up, you think you might have a lake trout, so you're going faster. Take your time going up. Make sure your bait is angled the right way, that it's not twirling. It's going to make it harder for those fish. Those whitefish are already not very agile. Make it easy for them. Make sure that bait swimming in a straight line slowly, and match its speed, and wait for that rod to load up. That's why you don't want a stiff rod at the front end. You want a decent backbone. You would just want to reel. And one thing I find with fish that are deep, like whitefish and lake trout on Lake Simcoe, is retrieving and being steady. When you grab your rod from here to here, I want to keep the same motion going. A lot of guys grab their rod, they're like trying to close the reel down and reel, and the bait is just doing this in the water. As the fish just locked into it, he acknowledged it, the bait's doing this. Alrighty, no, just go up like a squirrel that's going away. Fade away, nice and steady. And if it's going up, keep going up. Wait for that rod tip to load up. And if he's going back down, the whitefish, open your bell, go back down. If he acknowledges it again, go even slower. Don't shake it. Little shake confuses them. There's no bait fish doing that while he's trying to eat it, right? You're on bottom, you're just trying to go away. It's the same thing going down. If you're on bottom and that bottom whitefish is coming and you're just doing this here, you think you're going to catch him? Yeah, if he's very ferocious, but most of them aren't. Again, I'm not saying you're not going to catch a whitefish if you're jigging your minnow on the way up. But with my experience, you want the percentage added to your side. In most cases, reel, steady, go up with the fish. Keep it in the straight line. If you're going up here and up here, that whitefish has to stabilize itself. It's not a predator like the lake trout. And even the lake trout don't like that either. The deep lake trout love chasing in a straight line. Maybe a tube on a wide circle, but if your bait's coming up like this, if it's very territorial, it might hit it as a reaction strike, but not a feeding strike. And a lot of time, they'll just nip at it the back end. And a feeding strike will be, full on rod bent. You can tell it's 2 different strike, nipping and he waffled it down. Okay. Next, we are going back to, just want to see what I'm on next year. If I missed anything, guys, let me know. So your patterns. I used to fish a lipless a lot on Simcoe. It's really good. You're allowed 2 rods. So you want a finesse pattern on one end, close to the bottom, and you want more of a reaction pattern. You're lipless. You can fish it all the way through the water column on bottom or on top. The shallow fish, including whitefish and especially lake trout and burbot, if you go and disturb the bottom, you're disrespecting their territory. They become very territorial and they have much more aggression to hit your bait. Fishing on bottom and trying to run away and creating cloud of dust makes smallmouth, largemouth, pike, burbot, lake trout, whitefish. It drives them nuts. It's almost as if they have to defend that behavior and be like, you're not supposed to do this around here. You're survival of the fittest. I'm just going to eat you. I find that fish that are harder to get, you can get them going if you're fishing the bottom properly. Again, you don't want to be jigging here. You don't want to be lifting it just a little bit. You're trying to dig down and go away. Oh no, I'm trying to gun away. And the fish is going to line himself up. How do you track deeper water fish? You do bounce on bottom, but deeper water fish are either feeding like this or up. Go higher. So if I'm fishing shallow in, say, 25 feet of water, my bait's just a foot off bottom, right? If I'm fishing, say, Camp and Felt in 75 feet of water, my bait's 15 feet off bottom. First of all, those whitefish are not going to be as shallow on the bottom. They'll be 4 or 5 feet off the bottom, and you'll see them coming through white school. I'm a bit higher than them. Once one commits to come and see my bait, he's already committed to come off bottom where he's comfortable with another school. My percentage of hookup ratio is much better, right? They are a curious fish. Stuff has to run away from them on the daily. They are still a predator. Are they the apex? No. These J's. TJ in the house. But okay, going back to the presentation. It's been an hour and 23 minutes, and I'm trying to keep on track here. If you have questions, ask them. Shallow water pattern, lipless for whitefish, Williams half and half, Meigs. I'm biased. I feel your hookup ratio is much better on this. It's a soft bait all the way through. So when they put it in their mouth, even if you miss them, they want to go back to it. You can put scent on it. It's not too heavy, and you can still get bit on the way up on this bait. I really enjoy something simple. Doesn't have a tail that's moving much. You give it the action. We have colors that are in matching goby, the light colors and mating goby, and we have shinobi, and we have a pink dust. And I believe Marco came out with this name. I asked him, what name do you think we should name it? He said pink dust. Camera doesn't do justice how cool this color is. There's a little gold dust in the pink. You got to remember, when those whitefish are seeing those baits, it's usually like this, not like this. They're seeing the top end of it. The top end coloration is critical. In deeper waters, what's the last color to disappear? Blue. We're going to talk about colors before we go into moon phases, and probably a lot of you guys are still wanting to learn about moon phases, and this is where the depth of this seminar webinar is going to kick in after this. So hang in there. But blue to me has been solid for lake trout. It is so good. It's the last color they see in the water. This one glows in the dark. You can see them at Tackle Depot. It's limited quantities. We make it 2 brigs to go in here. And the feather that's on here, it's hand tied by me right here. And it's got epoxy. So I don't want to name any brands, but when you're fishing usually a feathered like this bought by a corporation, one fish and the feathers are all gone. And the line that's holding the feather is usually breaking away because the pike or the brook trout has worn out. we've epoxy. We fixed that problem. The epoxy is protecting the line, and these feathers last much longer. Again, no justice on this feather tie, but it's amazing quality on a great hook. And there you have it. These are a tube rig right here. And if you're going to fish this jig head into a white tube or a single layered tube like we have here, it's the blue is glow in the dark too as well. Blue has been really good to me a lot. Yeah, and you're going to see the industry change. White is great. Chartreuse is great. Glow in the dark is great. Blue's better. Blue and yellow, I find, are a lot better than just straight white. White is still a staple, and I just find blue keys in more, gives them more of a two-tone. It's blue is so good. It's so underutilized, I find, into our freshwater. I don't know why, but it was my preferred color this year. That and pink, actually, over white. Go to retrieve for sharpshooting smallies in the fall. Bigging seems to be much more skittish because they know. You think a 5 pound smallmouth on Lake Simcoe has never been caught? It's got caught many times. Many a times. There's not that many. They know when the live scope beam is over their head. They feel the frequency. A lot of anglers will pan around, see the fish. Okay, 45 feet. They'll pan away and they'll cast 45 feet that way, knowing the fish is there. They know. They're educated. There's a giant frequency going around with live scope. Way more than 2D sonar. You're talking like 83 to 200 hertz versus like thousands of hertz. You might not hear it through ambient air, but go underwater, you're going to hear the frequency. Yeah, it's very well known. They know that you're there, buddy. Those bass are not silly, especially in the fall in Kempenfelt. And you know, it's a seminar about whitefish and lake trout. Maybe I'll come do a seminar and talk about how to get those fish going. A lot of guys have made videos and stuff like that. I don't think they go in depth about it. You got to remember, bass is a very hardy fish that's able to withstand pressure compared to a lake trout or a walleye fishing pressure. They know once they get, say, dragged around in the live well because they bit a spoon, they're not going to hit a spoon. You know, they're smart on Lake Simcoe. They're not like those Georgian Bay and Muskoka bass that are less pressured. Is it passed down through their genetics? I don't know, but I can tell you that on Lake Simcoe, and you guide out there, you know, line diameter matters. You'll get bit more if you have a smaller line diameter. They're boat shy. If there's kiddish and following your bait, because they know your boat's there, cast further. How do you cast further? Smaller line diameter, right? If you have 10-pound tests going through 60 feet of water, it does a vibration on the whole thing. It's kind of you know, if you take a guitar string and go this through the air, you're going to hear it. Well, it's the same thing through the water, even more because it's more dense, although you're not going fast. All these little key features add up. That your percentage game, again, you know, there's more skittish on following. Do you have a snap swivel tied on? Like, if you have a snap swivel tied on to your bait fishing Lake Simcoe, I don't know how to say this. Snap swivel is like the white belt in martial arts to fishing. Snap swivel do not go on baits. They serve no purpose about other than laziness, tied directly to your line here. And I don't know if I have the video on here, but I'll show you. And we're going to get back into the presentation here before we get to the end of it. Colors we talked. Oh, I believe this is yeah. So look at this. Do you see my line? Look how clear the water is. Slow motion. Do you see my line? Do you see my line in the water whatsoever? That makes a huge difference. Although the way my bait swims when I'm going to retrieve it In deeper water, it's amplified. I want to go back to that. Let's go and talk about line diameter, line quality, back to the tube. What I use for line on your reel, all you need on Lake Simcoe, and that's all I've caught. I've caught the record burbot on this. I've caught giant lake trout on Lake Simcoe. I've caught a big walleye. All you need when you go fish Lake Simcoe is 10-pound braid, maybe 15, 10-pound braid. You don't need to go any higher. And 10-pound fluorocarbon, and then you can go down from there. I really, really enjoy 7-pound test for whitefish, smallmouth, walleye, crappie fishing. I rarely go down past 7-pound test. Now, I don't mess around with a big bucks fluorocarbon, big corporation fluorocarbon like your staple. I like Sunline. Sunline, I fished tournaments for over a decade on Lake Simcoe, and I fished the Pro-Am and the Canadian Open 6 times in total altogether, and 33% of the time I've caught big fish in those tournaments. Line diameter is everything. I know guys fishing 5-pound test. I am not comfortable with that, and they snap fish, and I don't like snapping fish. I'd rather not catch than snapping one, if you know what I mean. Like 7-pound Sunline Sniper FC is all you need. It's what I prefer is the Sniper FC Sunline. If you want to know without the brand, knowing the brand, go to the store and grab the fluorocarbon is what I use. Don't use mono, fluorocarbon. Grab the line, put it in your hand like this, and go like this and roll it. If you feel like it's round and it's rolling through your hand and it's not, it doesn't have sharp edges, that's a good line. The way fluorocarbon is made, it goes through a die at a certain temperature and it pushes through here. And over time, the die will deform and have sharp edges. Those sharp edges, they're no good. I want roundness. So grab the line and go like this. Sunline seems to be the more consistent in terms of roundness. More roundness, it goes through the water better than one that has more like a triangle shape. I don't want to name any brand, but go to the store and do this. Good quality fluorocarbon line. I like 7-pound test, but 10-pound test is what I've caught the big burbot on. It's what I've caught most of my lake trout on. It's what I've caught most of the majority of my whitefish. You don't need to go any smaller. The Unlucky Fisherman, is there a Critter Assassin website? It just launched a couple hours ago, www.critterassassin.com. Right now, we just got pro kits that I'm making designed for Lake Simcoe, just mostly for the seminar here. The pro kits come, here's one here that I took a picture of. This is what you get in the Whitefish Pro box. And unfortunately, I've opened a package, but you get a bunch of Critter Assassin. I think you get 6 packs, 3 of the 2.5 inch in 3 different colors. You can see the colors on the website. 3 inch, 3 packs of the 3 inch. And the beauty of those is like you'll catch a lake trout coming through with this. Like a lake trout that's seen the lipless, that I've seen the swim baits, that I've seen the big tubes, that comes through on a shoal and sees this, she's eating it too. Like, is she going to be more adept to go to that right away? She's a lot more territorial. She'll go to something bigger. But when they're picky and they've seen a lot of lures, the smaller is better. It's like your line diameter. You also get a sticker. Those, if you know me and my stickers, I like quality stickers. That you can have. I've had this sticker. It's a different sticker. This one's smaller, right? This one's bigger. At the back of my phone here, and it hasn't faded or anything. And you guys are watching and supporting. There's a limited quantity of those stickers right now at Tackle Depot. There's 50 of them. And in some of the packs, if you pay attention, I've hidden some stickers. Those stickers, utilize them, put them on your car, keep them, do whatever you want, keep track of them. Because in December 2025, I'm going to do the biggest giveaway I've ever done. And the person or supporters, I should say, that have the most stickers are more likely going to win. It's not finalized yet. I shouldn't even be talking about this, but there's a chance that you might come and fish with me. I'll pick you up at the airport. You come in for a week, you and somebody else. There's 50 stickers, well, 50 plus stickers right now at Tackle Depot. You're buying, well, I written down, I was talking to Tom. You're buying 5 packs of Critter Assassin. The smaller packs are $5. You 5 of anything of Critter Assassin at Tackle Depot, you're getting a free sticker. Or see, the thing is, like, these shows, and that's why I like Tackle Depot about this, is these shows, like a lot of these places that go to the tackles, those fishing shows, is they don't bring any deals, or they don't bring, you know, people want to go to the show. Like, I'll just go to your store if I don't want to have a deal. But if I go there, I want somewhere to have a deal. I feel that's a good deal. Those stickers are expensive. It's 3M material. It's not going to fade away. It's not going to peel off, and it's not going to leave residue at the back when you want to peel it off in 5 years. But the other thing, there's 10 of them. I don't have them here, but if you remember, I've designed the deal jig head when I was with the other tackle store. There's 10 packs. I've given them away for free. You have a choice. After saying there's going to be a big giveaway, I doubt they go for before, but there's 10 packs. You give them 5. You're getting 5 packs like this. You can get a free pack of those jig heads. They're probably worth $8-9 for 3. So pretty cool. So the pro kits, I have a Whitefish pro kit and I have a 2-box pro kit. The 2-box, you have your blue color. The blue glows in the dark, and I have a yellow and white color, which is a staple through the day and higher light conditions, I find. And you have a tube rig like this on a lake trout grade hook. I find that us lake trout fishermen, and I know it's a seminar about whitefish right now, we got to use bass tackle to go catch lake trout. They have super hardy mouth, and I find that, like, when you use your staple jig head for bass, it's ruined very quickly. They'll bend it, they'll ruin it, the eyes will peel off. This is lake trout graded. I've caught thousands of lake trout on these rigs. I still have the same rig in the boat that I've used all season guiding. And Leon came here. I don't know. He's probably not here anymore. Leon came here. That's what we used. No salt in the tubes. And we have 2 versions. We have the triple dip and the single layered. These are your single layered tubes right here. And there's 3 in a packs, or 2 like this in a pack. The triple layered will last longer. And the material that I use to do the triple layer is a very high-end premium saltwater grade material, so it doesn't tear off as easily. And you have another tube rig that comes in the 2-box kit with a willow blade, sort of a, I don't know, Colorado mixed willow blade on it. If you can also fish pike for these through weed beds, they do really well. But this is also very good to attract fish. Doesn't mean that, you know, if I'm on Simcoe, I'm going back to, I have 2 rods, I'll have this in the water for sure. In mid-water column, whether I'm deep or shallow, I'll have a tube or a lipless, something like this to attract them. The whitefish, they'll come to it. They'll see it further than your little jig of feet off bottom, and they'll be like, oh, okay, no, I don't want this. I'm just curious. Oh, look, little Critter Assassin on bottom. Boom. That's how most of my fish, my whitefish I've caught on Lake Simcoe. I fooled them with a big attractor that I'm barely moving, that I leave suspended in a rod holder. And if a fish comes to it, I'll start moving it very quickly, thinking it's lake trout. And whitefish are not going to attack this unless they're being silly that day. But it's more like a fish attractor. I love the tubes. And the thing is, with the tubes, you can fish it on the way up and you can fish it on bottom. Fish your tube on bottom, guys. It's such a good bait for burbot fishing too. And the scent that we have on here, it's you guys will notice it noticeably. So back to your most important part of the programming here. Let's dive into detail about the moon phases. I've talked about moon phases before and creating tides and underwater currents in around the world. You look everywhere, the data tells you that we have no tides in our freshwater lakes because they don't have enough BS on that. I see it. I've seen it on Lake Simcoe, spending enough time around, not estuaries, but choke points, and seen it with the underwater footage, drone footage. There's enough mass in Lake Simcoe. Now, the tide, you're not going to notice it with your eyes, but you're going to notice it underwater in those areas where there's choke point, where those you have your shoal. And let's go into details about the moon phases, and hopefully it helps you. Remember, fishing reminder is one of the link I use to. Okay, we've seen this. Come on, what's this? It keeps popping up. No. Moon phases. Dinner is ready. We can predict tides with the remarkable accuracy because of tides are governed by predictable astronomical forces such as gravitational pull of the moon and the sun and Earth's rotation. Here's how tides are tracked and predicted. So they're able to track and predict tides in Florida, Chesapeake Bay, or Africa on the Ivory Coast in 5 years from now on. If it's going to be a low tide, high tide, neap tide. And we're going to dive into what's creating those tides and how it's being created. Astronomical data, moon and sun position, the relative position of the moon and sun determine the strength and timing of tidal forces. These movements are predictable because they follow precise orbital path. Lunar phases, the phases of the moon, new moon, full moon, that includes quarter moon and 3/4 moons. There's many names for them. It helps determine whether the tides will be higher, spring tides, or lower, neap tides. Let's dive into this. Moon phases and the effect on freshwater. If you're fishing Lake Couchiching that tops out at like 35 feet in some areas, when a moon comes through, or a moon phase, or the sun, or the gravitational pull of either, the depth that's in Lake Couchiching compared to Lake Simcoe, it's not going to create as much current. And where is that tide being created when you're looking at Lake Simcoe? So this is the Earth right here in the gray. I've covered this with a gray to show. And Lake Simcoe, north-south. Moon phases in depth, a spring tide, and it has nothing to do with spring. But if you look in fishing reminder, if we go here, what is it? Wednesday, November 10th. Average day, moon rise, moon set, moon over, moon under. How far the moon is the distance of the Earth. The further she'll be, the less tide you'll have. It's what they're calling it, a neap tide. Moon major, moon minor, another major, and a minor. Those are your times when the gravitational pull of either the sun or the moon is creating current underwater. Those windows are usually 2 hours. What makes it a good day of fishing? It's pretty simple. On fishing reminder, 4 stars, you'll have 3 or more of the minors and major during daylight. That's all it is. What it is tomorrow around Toronto. Terrible. The major is when the sun is already gone. It's starting to be gone already, so it's not that great. We only have 1 minor during daylight, basically. That's why we have 1 star. Now, on fishing reminder, you can see here your major are, am I right with this? Are the sun. Major times are the sun tides, and minor times are the moon tides. So it's not always that the sun tides or the moon tides created by the moon are equal, right? I'm going to go into, give me a 3-star day. Major time, you got your sun at sunrise for 2 hours. during sunrise, creating current. If you know anything, those fish are feeding habits are created by a current because they can see what's coming to them or what's ahead of them in terms of food. They can smell it. Just like a moose downwind can smell you. It's the same thing. We need to come to an understanding that fish do smell what's ahead of them. Their scents are way more cued in. They don't have a roof over their head. They have to find food to survive. Hence the migration that happens. Spring tide with the moon, lunar tide. So look at Lake Simcoe here. When you have a spring tide, a new moon, or full moon, your gravitational pull is east to west, not north, south, east to west. So what does that mean? If we go back to here, boom, we're by Fox Island, and that applies to anything else. This reef is amazing, by the way, for especially this thing right here. Your deep whitefish, your shallow whitefish will be up here. That tide, when the moon's rising up here on the east side, and you see it rising through the day, you're not going to see most of it because it's, either cloudy in the winter or she's way too up high or it's too clear to see the moon. When she rises, the current's going to go this way, to the right, to the east, because she's pulling the water her way. Where do you set up once you've learned the mechanics of the underwater flow of a lake and the tides, like I've showed you over shoal? Those fish that are going to be active are going to be here. And the fish that are going to be very active but less are going to be on top. And the chill fish, when they want to chill, are going to be here. Not all the time. Just if we're using a percentage game and we use the data, it's going to be the same thing on this shoal. Your active fish are going to be here, more active fish on top, and the ones that are chilling are going to be here. Boom. Let's go back to pick another shoal. White shoal. There we go. Another good spot to go fish. It's pretty cool up here. I've put a drone down here. This is giant steps. It all looks like man-made. There's like 10-foot drop-offs with giant stones, like almost slats. It's almost like limestone. It's pretty cool. But again, the moon's rising to the east, say for what day is that? Monday, November 25th. If I'm going to set up there that's a sun tide. The sun's rising at 7 on the east side to 9, 7 to 9. Where am I setting up here if I want to go after active fish? The tide is, and we're not talking a giant current. It's not going to take you, we're talking like maybe half a mile, but it's a world of difference in a lake that has no current. Your active fish are going to be here. Very active fish are going to be on top, and your chill fish are going to be here. That is the data that I've used on Lake Simcoe for a very long time to be predictable, to help my percentage catch ratio. Doesn't mean it's always right, but if we're playing a percentage game and I don't want to play a good luck fishing game, that's what I'm using. Data doesn't lie, and I'm not a math guy, but it does not lie. The current, if we use common sense, up here on White Shoal at 7 a.m., it's got depth. A lot of mass in this water here versus the current up here is way less. There's way less mass. The shore's stopping. It almost becomes stagnant here. And this is why on Lake Simcoe, when you're fishing out there and it's not windy and you hear the ice and you hear pressure cracks and the cracks are always predictable the same way, it's the moon. When the moon and the sun comes through, it's pulling the water up. It's pulling the water up in this bowl. I have to use this here. Moon comes through over Lake Simcoe. It's fairly low, the moon, so they call it new moon, whatever. It's fairly low when it comes through the day. It's got a lot more gravitational pull. The deeper water the deeper the water, the more pull it has. It's going to bring in more current. Now, the understanding that and going to utilizing fishing reminder and moon phases to maximize your catch ratio or your time ratio, it doesn't mean that you have boat days to go fishing. Your wife might only let you out half a day Saturday. I have a lot of buddies like that. I can only go out Saturday. I get it. You got kids, but you want to go out. Well, look up fishing reminder, look up the weather network, look up and plan your day. Okay, I'm going to set up there and I'm going to stick with my game plan. If you go out there and you go, oh, a buddy from his hamster's dog told me that they're getting them at Breaking Point. I seen pictures. Yeah, I'm never listening to that, man. I don't listen to dog talk. I fish tournaments. Half of it is BS. We're fishermen after all. We've all said, oh, this thing was like 5 feet long. That's fishing stories. It's the same thing. I'm going to go gather my own data. I'm doing my own homework. And I'm fishing a percentage game. That's all it is. If you have a minimized time, utilize that data to your advantage. You can do no research. You can listen to this seminar and not visit any of the website or put any of that data that I've provided to you and still catch fish 110%. But the guy that's going to be willing to improve that game over time, he's going to go out there and have better success. That's all it is. That's all fishing is. Oh, you can't see the shoal I'm talking about? Let's go back to it. My bad. I'm so sorry. Windows. Boom. I'm so sorry. Lost you guys, but you guys are still here. 1 second here. Boom. Okay, I was talking about white shoal, right? We know the east side is here, the west side is here. On right here, I don't know if you guys can see the fishing reminder here. It's telling me Monday, November 25th, if I was to go fish for whitefish and the season was open, say it's January 1st, 7 to 9 a.m. is the moon coming through. It's a major. It's telling me the sunshine is waking up from the east. The sun is closer to the earth at that point. It's at gravitational pull. The water is going to go from west to east. There will be a slight current. Those fish will be activated. And the current that's here is much stronger than the current that's here. Those are the things that you need to take into consideration. I don't know if you guys can still see me, so it's worrisome about keep talking about this, but going back to Kempenfeld and talking about Big Bay Point. Right here, when the pull happens here and the water goes from 120 feet to 20 feet very quickly, the current that's here is unreal. Unreal. There's a feeding frenzy that's happening through this flat here at some point through the season. That is unreal. And you've seen a lot of guys fish here. You're not going to see me fish here in this area when there's no major and moon minors. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be here at some point through the day, but this is, to me, is what creates the bringing them up there, is those fish to come and feed up here, is that current, right? You have a choke point. Same thing around these islands. Oh, whoa. Settle down. All these islands, when the sun rises, all the flow goes around here, right? It's the same thing. So I think it's important we talk back to these shoals. So you got Fox Islands, you're looking at these shoals. Knowing that the tides are going to go this way when the sun rises for that major, your active fish, when we seen on the graph that I was showing you earlier, are going to be here. The more active fish are going to be on top, and the chill fish are going to be here. It's the same thing with these. Look at the way it is. It's common sense. Long shoal, right? Your chill fish are going to be here, chill around here, and your active fish are going to be up here on this side during those moon phases. Doesn't mean that the guy that's setting up here is not going to catch, right? It really depends on that moon phases and applying that percentage game. Neap tide. That's when the first quarter moon and the third quarter moon and the sun. Look at gravitational pull. It's still pulling water to the east side when it rises. The problem is the moons at first quarters and at third quarter, they're pulling water north and south. So north and south, and it almost cancels it out. But again, the deeper you are, the more effect you have. So shallow game is not everything when you look at this data here. And the data on the moon phase and its effects on fresh water, there's not much because guys don't really fully believe in it. Talk to the guys that are out there all the time and talk to them, go talk to Greg Emil, who's a guy that's made so much money into tournament fishing for salmon, who are the moon phases king. Talk to Greg Emil about the moon phases if they have an impact on the fisheries and the fishing behavior. It's insane. It's and it'll vary on lakes. Again, if you go into Lake Couchiching, you're not going to have the same effect that you have on a massive body of water with mass in it. So I'm worried that you guys can't see what I'm saying. So I'm going to go back and see. 1 second here. Okay, we're back. Okay. Simcoe kicked my ass last season. Walked 2 miles, drilled over 40 holes. I do that on a day. I kicked my ass many times. I mean, are you, again, if you go back at the beginning of the presentation, are you fishing where there's no fish? Here's a big tip for whitefish, and this is going to sound silly. Drill a hole in like 25 feet of water where you want to see where you're fishing. Put your face down, cover all the light from coming up, close your eyes for 5-10 seconds. Let so your light adjust to the low light down there, and look down. And if you see a soft bottom with like a bunch of spot that's been sucked off, whitefish have been through there sucking on bloodworms. And again, currents, underwater currents will wipe that off fairly quickly. If that happens, you're sort of on their trail, on their path, so you're around. Every shoal that's got 20 feet of water or more will have whitefish on it. They're all over it. They want quick access to deeper water to get away from things. But every shoal, south, north, west, east on Lake Simcoe have whitefish on them at some point of the year. Sorry, guys. Just had to tell somebody. Okay, so again, guys, you want to do me a big favor. I'm giving a ton of information here. We're going to do another seminar about lake trout tomorrow. Go on my website and share it on your social media. Just get some eyes on there, and purchasing stuff motivates me to make more videos like this. I have a lot more in the tank that I'm not fully sharing yet. You have questions about Lake Simcoe, Saturday, Sunday, go to Tackle Depot and tell Tom to FaceTime me, and I'll help you pick your rod, your reel. Literally, the digital world, they got Wi-Fi over there. I'm moose hunting in the morning and I'm moose hunting in the evening. But midday, call me. We'll have a conversation. I'll FaceTime with you and I'll help you out into your needs as much as I can. What I have for colors there are proven for me. They work on many lakes. All my whitefish, and I've catched thousands through the year. And fishing other lakes than Lake Simcoe have made me realize how much more I know about fish on Lake Simcoe that I didn't know before. It's weird. The support, all the thumbs up that are there, I appreciate. Let's finish the moon phases. We're not done. It's been going on for 2 hours of me rambling. Let's go back to sharing here. Cracking the code. What do you guys think of the seminar so far, webinar? Friend, I feel like a lot of these webinars, seminars are just like, what am I doing here? Are just, I'm struggling. Sorry, guys. Okay. We back. Neap tides. You have it. Look at it. The moon will pull the water north and south, and the sun will pull east-west. It's almost canceling both. Minimal effect as both the moon and the sun gravitational pull cancels out each other, right? So your first quarter and your third quarter moon, that's when it happens. Fishing reminder. Techniques, rod and reel review combo and recommendations. We've seen this. We've covered this a bit earlier. I'm going to take a bunch of questions here. Wrap it up. Tomorrow's the lake trout. And I look forward to sharing lake trout behaviors. They're smart, man. I think they're the smartest fish that we have here. You want me to give you one of the biggest tips ever? And it's hard to do in the city. I live in the bush now. I get to see bird migrations. Birds are just fish with feathers. Honestly, birds have behavior. They're territorial. Fish do the same thing. A lake trout is more like a bald eagle. It's going to hang around bald eagles, and sometimes it wants to be left alone, but their behavior, their characteristic is a lot of the same. If I see a flock of seagull here nesting on an island, there's always an eagle around watching them. The lake trout's the same thing. It'll be around whitefish. Oh, I'm friends with you guys, but when it wants to feed, it's going to eat a lake trout, a whitefish, or vice versa, right? If you're fishing in their food banks, you're going to catch them. If you're fishing where there's no food, the chance of you hooking into one, it's still there because it might pass through. You have to be a bit more patient. You want to learn about fish while you're at work and you're able to see birds outside, look at them. Look at their behavior. Look how they react within each other and other subspecies. Rarely do you see subspecies of bird mixing unless they're like subspecies. You can see seagulls and geese hang out together. Not a lot. Not a lot, though. Right? Who wants to hang around a ditch cobra anyway? They're annoying, those things. Just kidding. That's it for me tonight. I can't take you guys enough. I know I've been out of the loop in terms of those seminars. I'm coming to Simcoe again this year, and I can't wait to see the clear waters, the aquarium views. Do you need a fish finder? Sure, it'll help you get yourself a fish finder for the open water and ice fishing. You can also look down the hole. Look at the data that's on the bottom. Look at what they're feeding on. If you're going to set up where it's a bit of that moss on top, go lighter, right? The shallower you get, go lighter. I still use just a 1/4 ounce when I'm in Kempenfeld. Going too deep, if you're on bottom, that bait with a 1/2 ounce, you drop it on bottom, it's 4 inches silt. They see nothing. Guys that put spreaders down there and they set it all the way on bottom, the fish see nothing. The spreader is in the silt. It gets covered up by silt. You got to leave it up a foot off bottom at least. Thanks, Adam. Go check the Tackle Depot. I mean, that's a tackle store that's supporting local guys like me, where a lot of information shared, and the way you guys keep this going is, hard work. I've done all that stuff through here. I've put it together. I've seen a few orders come through my phone, and I'm super grateful for that. I can't take you guys enough. There's a few t-shirts available on the website that are left. We got some hats coming. You don't know what to give, or you don't know what to get for Christmas. That's a great gift idea for the fishermen. Instead of giving them a Bass Pro gift card, give them something that's a bit more artistic, dial down. You're going to get a lot more for your bang for your buck, and it helps me make those videos. Check out Critter Assassins. Go check out Tackle Depot. You won't need some information. You don't know what pack to pick. Get Tom to FaceTime me, and I got you. You just got the life scope from Tackle. I heard they sold so much, they got 10% left of the inventory. That's such a good deal. Our Stug's got a great question. When you get that bigger current in the moon phase, how do you keep your 1/4 ounce jig on your sonar? Because there's current always, all the time anyway in Kempenfelt. Line diameter. If you have 15-pound test fluorocarbon, a 15-pound test braid, it gets caught. Smaller line diameter. Get the smaller line diameter. That's all it is. 7-pound test will swing a lot less than 10-pound test. Line diameter. Right? What's catching more in the wind, this or this? Now, wind is nothing compared to the density of water. You can also go tungsten. You can go 1/2 ounce for the size of a 1/4 ounce. Again, if you're in deep water, you're not going to fish bottom as much as I'd like to. I'm fishing the upper water column. A tractor halfway through the water column is number one for me. And then I'm fishing the 3/4 of the rest of the water column with a smaller jig. Really aggressive fish like the lake trout will come up halfway through, and the whitefish will come and see your little tracers. These little baits are killer. The scents are killer. You guys are killer. Thanks so much for the support. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll leave this one up. I've been deleting all the videos I've been putting on YouTube lately. This one's staying up forever. Deal with it. Be respectful of your fishery and your communities you're visiting. You see an old lady trying to get their garbage out on a Friday morning when you go in to fish, say on the Oral side or Innisfil side, ask her if she needs help, or bring her coffee next time. And maybe you'll have a spot reserved on her front lawn or in their parking lot next time. Don't go and start your snowmobile at 6 thinking you're cool, because those people are worked all week and don't want to go fish. Those people are going to be pissed, and they're going to block access to the lake. One of the major reasons why I left and I closed my store, and I sold it, I should say, is because of the mentality of the city of Aurelia, charging $100 during COVID to be able to launch your boat. Basically telling the poor, we only want rich people here. It's a public lake. As far as I know, launching your boat should be free. I should be able to have access to with my family to that lake at any time I want, free of charge. We pay enough tax. That goes around Lake Simcoe. It's not because somebody's got a cottage on it that they have rights to the whole lake. I hate to say it, but those guys, most of them, don't even use the lake. They just have a view. Take that with a grain of salt, but be respectful. Those guys will stop and block and charge more at the ramp. What's the size? That's a large. Quality shirt, 100% cotton, and it won't crack fast. Just wash it in cold water. Thanks, guys, man. We'll see you guys later.